In our last video, we reviewed how evolution occurs through mutations, adaptations, and speciation. Remember, when our environment changes, the more successful traits live on to be passed from generation to generation, changing the characteristics of that species. And if they change enough, we get an entirely new species. Now, that is through natural selection. What about when humans are involved? So there's natural selection, and then what happens if a human gets involved? Because we know that's kind of our thing to do. Well, that is called artificial selection, because it's not happening naturally, it's happening through the process of a human, or selective, because we're being selective, we're choosing, breeding, because we're making new offspring. So there's natural selection versus artificial selection, and artificial selection has two names. Selective breeding and artificial selection mean the same thing. So what happens in natural? Well, we already talked about that. Nature chooses. And again, we're not saying that there's Mother Nature somewhere choosing certain traits. We're saying that if you survive in that environment, then your traits will be passed down long enough to reproduce. Your traits will be passed down, carried on. Now, unfortunately, because we're humans, that is not the case in artificial selection and selective breeding. And ladies and gentlemen, for our example, allow us to look at a pug, shall we? Because this is one of the greatest examples of artificial selection, selective breeding gone wrong. This poor baby is so physically distinctive, aka short muzzled face, short body, difficult breathing, difficult trouble with their circulatory system, often get arthritis. This is not a dog made for the wilderness. This is not a dog made for long-term survival. This was made through artificial selection, which unfortunately humans choose the trait we see as desirable. This, unfortunately, sweet baby, was seen to be desired in the early 1500s to be a footstool for the royal family. Yes, royal and rich people used small dogs as footstools. People are the worst. Okay, we have bred Labradors for being cuddly and swimming well. We have bred Pits for protection because they are sweet and adorable. We have bred Labradors and hunting dogs. The modern day dog breed is a direct result of artificial selection and selective breeding. The desirable trait. Again, the thing that we're changing is the traits. Selective breeding and artificial selection are also very common on farms. Livestock, pigs, chickens, cows. You want the most muscular and the fattiest, the most muscular chickens, the fattiest pigs, the most milk producing cows. Traits that are desirable will be bred together to create the most desirable outcome. Remember, with the use of our Punnett square, we can determine probable offspring using the parent genotypes. So if I take two well-producing milk cows, a well-producing milk cow mixed with a bull, I can create well-producing mixed offspring. So it is genetic choices. You're choosing the genetic line. There is an entire other system called genetic engineering, and that is where we get real Frankenstein, and we will come back to that.